أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم. So we have been studying questions from non-Muslim friends, not your questions. So we listed a bunch of questions and we are now going out of order. Marriages, hadith, madhahib, Shia, Sunni. And last week we were discussing Quran and interpretation. The major question was, why is Quran open to such a wide way of interpretation? This was the question from last week. Okay. It's coming? Okay. This was the main question. And as we were discussing that, I went through the class, well, our gathering, and I asked, what is Quran for you? This was our question. And I was trying to get your answers for that question. Why did I start with that? Do you remember? Any idea? What is Quran for you? Why did I like it? When it comes to interpretation of Quran, does it change anything?
In what sense?
I think it was like to establish that the reason for the general or vagueness of the words, that you can be open to different methods of interpretation, and what it means for one person.
Yeah. So what Quran is for you is going to affect what do you expect from Quran, right? Abla, if you have comments, go for it. I just muted. Okay. Yeah. What you expect from it will really depends on what it is for you. Like a very horrible example, but just to make my point. Once, like in my hometown, apricots are famous. And my mom made an apricot juice out of it and served it to someone. He drank the apricot juice, but he didn't like it. Then we said, well, he said, it's not a good orange juice. We said, well, it's not orange juice, actually, it's apricot juice. He then said, oh, let me give it another try. He drank it again. And now he said, wow, it's a good apricot juice. Because he was expecting the taste of orange from apricot and he didn't like it because like he's trying to interpret taste of apricot as orange and it doesn't sound like it, but he just changes the perspective and now looks at the same thing and starts liking it. This is a horrible example, but just to give a glimpse of even at this very sensible level, like taste, it makes a difference. How you interpret things changes depending on what it is to you. So this is why, what is Quran? And I can increase questions such as, is Quran a history book? Is Quran a science book? Like, is Quran a, what's your major? Mechanical? Is Quran a mechanical engineering handbook? Like, would you expect Quran to tell you about, I don't know, calculus? You won't, right? Then what is it, right? If you take Quran as we generally tend to do, Quran is a book of laundry list of do's and don'ts because it's the book of Muslims. So the most generic answer is it teaches us how to live life, which is a good answer. But generally what we mean by that is how to live life. How we split inheritance, how we do the prayer, like the marriage, parent, child, and whatnot. But this is more like a very sharp boundaries of do's and don'ts we are looking for. And this is why such a question comes, saying that, well, truth should be one, because I am looking for whether I should do prayer like this or like that or whatever, right? But when it comes to living life, everybody in this room pretty much is coming from a different background. In America, even people are coming from different nations and whatnot. But even if two people are coming from the same household, as we were discussing with Zara is here, so Zara was mentioning that there are three siblings. There's older, there has to be a middle one, and there's a younger one. Younger ones are always spoiled. Older one is always the stronger one, so the middle one gets beaten up the most. Even within the same family, there has to be different circumstances for everyone. So everybody is coming from a different background in a certain sense. How do I live life as a middle child? How do I live life as the youngest child, as the oldest child? It changes. So if that book is word of a man who lived 14 centuries ago, another option, right? What would that mean? What would you expect from a, even let's assume super duper wise of a man, but who lived 14 centuries ago? Who wouldn't know what Instagram looks like? Who wouldn't have any idea about the attention span of today's people, who is like 60, 80 seconds attention span? How could somebody 14 centuries ago imagine this level of distraction, right? And now that person is, if we were to take Quran as his speech, to what extent would you benefit from that person's? How serious would you take it? You would say, well, how would he know anyways? Like, it's distantly relatable, but not that much, right? What if it is your, if when you take it as your creator's speech, how does it change? Let's even take it two more ways. It is speech of creator of heavens and earth versus your creator. How does it change? Does it make any change to you or no? It does. Like, if it is your creator, because again, it depends what you understand from creator of heavens and earth. Like, for example, Biden is your president, sort of, right? In this country. I mean, if for no one else, for Peter Parker. Okay, so does Biden know you? Like, he's technically ruling you, but he doesn't know you. And to whatever extent he cares about you is questionable, right? Given how he is handling things. So if Biden says, oh, a new rule for tax is being put forth, how much you would take it personal? Like, you would say that, well, Biden is just passing a mass law, and it's just, in average, Parker should be influenced in a good way, bad way. But if, let's say, 51% of the society is happy, enough votes for me, that's good for him, right? Like, that level of a thing, you can also take it for your creator as well. If you're imagining a God who is just governing the rules from very high above, and he's just saying that, okay, you're an angel, okay, take care of these things over there. Like, I am giving the duty to you. Another angel, oh, you take care of that. And then you said, well, I mean, God is there, but he's too distant. Maybe he doesn't even know. Like, what sort of a God you are imagining, right? Or if you take it as your creator, and you are aware of the fact that my feelings right now, because that's why Quran has a surah which starts with a conflict between a husband and a wife. And it's a secret, like, within the household, wife is unhappy with the husband. And revelation comes to Prophet ﷺ the other day saying that God heard their quarrel. The woman was right. So the creator is saying that I am not far. I am hearing what you're going through today and speaking to you accordingly. If you get to know creator as such, like, imagine that, let's say, Hadith is now, well, what if he started, let's assume he started putting some question in his head, which starts, what if? And even as the question is passing through his heart, I start answering, and then I say, Qadir would ask such a question, but this is what would be the answer. What would Qadir feel like? Like, is he really looking at my heart? He will feel a little goosebumps, and he will try to control his questions and feelings from inside, right? Is my creator any distant, furtherly distant than such a case, right? My creator is the one who is knowing every single thing that's going through this heart too, all the needs, all the desires. Such is the Quran. Such must be the Quran. My creator is talking to me. It's not a historical text. It's not, I mean, it should not be treated as a historical text per se. Since Dua came, she's going to ask further questions on that, but it cannot be taken as a historical text per se, but rather, as my creator is alive, that speech is alive, and it applies to me in my circumstances. Yes.
I had this one question like from last time as well. Like, is every single word of the Quran relatable to you?
Must be. Every single word of Quran must be relatable to me one way or another. To what extent you take something out of it is a different issue. But since it's a speech of your creator to you, to whatever extent it applies to you. And it really depends on how much you give to Quran. You will realize that it's speaking to you that much. As you open yourself up to Quran, Quran will start opening up to you. Or as Quran mentions about stage by stage revelation, Quran will get revealed to you. Like in how Surah Al-Qadr, since you are Qadir, you tell us. إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر ليلة القدر خير من ألف شهر تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم. So indeed we revealed Quran down, but then in that night angels keep coming down again and again. So revelation would come down to you again and again. Quran being revealed to messenger does not mean that Quran is revealed to you yet. If you consider Quran as this mushaf, this book, which is standing in the shelf, it is there. It's not here yet. It's not revealed down to you yet. So this is why you need to become a student of Quran with your questions, with your troubles, problems, so that it will start coming down to you. So this is why last week's discussion started with what is Quran for you. To the extent you understand who is speaking in the Quran, who are you, and what does Quran talk about, then Quran will start making sense. And this is why Qadir is a different person, I am a different person. Quran will say things specific to Qadir and things specific to me. Does this make sense? In expectation, I mean, is this expectation reasonable? Let's first settle with this, then we will get into details. Would you then expect Quran to speak to you directly, specifically to you? The text is the same though, but you are different. Does it make sense? And even over time, same you will read the same verse, but you're not the same really. Look what you were like 5 years ago. See yourself today. Imagine what you're going to become 5 years later. Also, consider how you get to know your creator 5 years ago, how you know your creator today, and how you're going to know your creator 5 years later. The same verse is going to speak to you in volumes. Does this make sense? So being in that expectation towards Quran is a very reasonable, if not necessary, attitude. Do you agree with that for so far? Right? This is one reason why Quran would have so many different interpretations. Because the speaker, creator, my understanding of my creator is going to change, which means I am going to have I can get correct meanings at different times. Because it happens that, let's say, Qadir is coming to those discussions for more than a year. 1 year ago, when Qadir was coming to discussions for the first time, if he asks a question, the same question, I would give him an answer, considering that he is showing up to the discussion for the first time. 1 year into the discussions now, and he has been going through, mashallah, regularly attending the discussions. If he asks the same question, I'm going to give him a different answer probably this time. Would say that, well, the answer I gave you that time was just to get you over a bump. Now that you are above this bump, we need to get into certain details. This answer does not apply to you anymore. I can even say that because now you're a different person. And what used to be a problem for you back then is not a problem for you, but you have a different problem today. Let's talk about this one. Make sense? So our very rigid understanding of, well, the truth is one. How dare, like, is it A, is it B, is it C? Yeah.
But like when it was revealed at the time of the Prophet, they have been like there is no different kind of interpretations you can say. There has been like one kind of understanding that has been going down. And you can even say like there was one problem that might have that that arose and then the revelation was revealed for that problem. So maybe you can, if you look at through that lens, when it was revealed for the Prophet, it was just like a singular meaning for that problem at that time.
Do you have any example for that? Like, what do you have as an example in your mind for that? Because this is a very super broad statement.
So I don't have like specific example, but I've read like the basic understanding is like when the Prophet was in like any sort of trouble or any problem, he would ask the Creator, and then a narration would be revealed.
So,
I'm
like,
talking about the time when
even in the lifetime of Prophet ﷺ, he would give limited interpretation of the Quran. But why? Like, his life was an interpretation of Quran in a certain time setup, but he would give limited interpretation verbally to Quran. If you go with hadith narrations, like saying that, oh, just pulling up the slides, Prophet, imagine pulling up the slide and saying that this verse means that. Very, very few examples of that. Why? If Prophet said it, it would become limiting for your understanding. The Prophet didn't do that.
There's even in that you can also like look at why the Quran even leaves room for interpretation in certain areas, and that is the same so as to not like limit you to just one narrow understanding.
And again, look at your expectation. Who is speaking here? An absolute creator is speaking here. Like, if I were to say something, I have a narrow understanding, narrow knowledge, a limited. I'm a human. No matter how wise, how smart, whatever I am, it's going to be a limited, narrow knowledge. Agree? So whatever I say would be within these boundaries. And that much you can make out of it. But when the Creator speaks, now we are talking about infinitely many potential meanings. So this is why you can understand the same verse for 14, 15 centuries. The same book is being read. Volumes and volumes of interpretations are being written on that, and even more so are being read by the individuals, and they find satisfactory answers for themselves within Quran, and they could be all correct meanings from Quran. Okay? Just stepping back, Prophet did not provide this sort of, like, he didn't write a tafsir as it would, if you like, limit our understanding, because, like, whom am I to really pass beyond what Prophet would have said? But he didn't say this is a beautiful thing. It was a purposeful thing, a wise thing. And sometimes when people ask the Prophet, sometimes he would give a limited answer, and many of the times he would say, do not ask, time to time. But this is, again, to leave us room for interpretation. But then will come questions. Okay. Zarar then says, but doesn't that lead to difference in legal interpretations, and how do we resolve it? For example, is hitting your wife allowed or not allowed? Jurists reach perfectly contradictory conclusions reading the same verse. Okay, good. And Dua is going to ask questions about, ask a question about, I guess, war, jihad.
Yeah. So we talked about how terrorism is being an issue right now, and in the Quran, like in Surah Tawbah, there are verses where like people are instructed to even kill people even if they're like in the Gilaf of the Kaaba, right? And then when you look at that, and then you're also looking at like the Caliph Umar, and you're like, wow, like we talk about him like, oh wow, like his empire was so big, and he really like spread Islam everywhere, and he's hailed as like the hero because he did that. So then how will you not see, and like we have all these ideas of, oh, like Muslims should focus on like making more money so we can really like spread Islam, or we should take our swords and spread Islam. So then how do you not see that as right in light of all of that?
Yeah. So all these problems come into come to a being. Again, what do we expect from Quran? My understanding of Quran. So in broader sense of the word, and I'll get back to the specifics of both your and Zara's question. What are then the boundaries of interpretation? Does that mean that anything can go? Okay, so we said that individually everybody is going to have their own understanding, but does that mean that, well, whatever you extract out of it, then it's a valid interpretation? Who is going to come against you, right? This is not the case either. Like it's not that any interpretation goes. What is the limit then? This is where now we need to put a few things, and it takes effort. So if you start feeling like it's going to be too much, bear with me. But what is the purpose of Quran? We first need to establish this, because I can understand it only within the purposes of Quran. Let me give you an example, as we were discussing with my wife yesterday. Like there's a book that, there's a tafsir that I like reading, and in that tafsir, author gives a lot of metaphors. But for some smart, bright person has written a book which only lists the metaphors or the stories used in that book as a separate book. And it was a thick volume like this. I said, well, what's the point of writing such a stupid book? Because those metaphors are given for a purpose. So they become useful within a certain context. And now you're writing a book only narrating metaphors in a book. Like, what is the value of that stupid book now? Because if I'm going to make a metaphor, this is to explain something else. So it becomes meaningful if you know what it is talking about. Now you're taking it out of that context and just explaining to me or listing me metaphors. Does it make any sense? No. So, because within the purposes of that book, this metaphor makes sense. If you take it out of there, use it in the vacuum, it doesn't mean anything. It can even be damaging. What is the purpose of Quran? It's going to change all the questions that we have here. When I'm going to, okay, I'll read that, Zara. So when I interpret jihad, what is jihad from the point of view of purpose of Quran? Or we were talking about nationalism before today's discussion started. From the point of view of Quranic perspective, how do I handle this? What does Quran say? Within Quran's purposes, what does it say? And of course, then the question becomes, what are the purposes of Quran, right? This is why you would know that Quran's purpose is not to teach me mechanical engineering. So you wouldn't seek any answer from Quran in this lens, right? Then what is the purpose of Quran? What I can understand and what I cannot understand from Quran really depends on these purposes of Quran. Okay? Because and this is also related for our discussion tonight. So we have been discussing evolution, and one of the sisters who is working in, like, doing research in biology, and she said she was having serious questions about evolution and whatnot. And one of the reasons the question was there is Quran talks about creation of Adam. And how do I handle this with the theory of evolution? What is she expecting here? She is expecting Quran to give her answers about biological origins of human being. Would you expect Quran to tell you about mechanical engineering? No. Anybody who's majoring in biology here? No? Let's assume that person sitting over there, imaginary. And she is expecting Quran to tell her something about the origins of human biology. Why not mechanical and biology then? Like when it comes to mechanical engineering, you find it funny that Quran is going to tell you anything about the details of mechanical engineering. And you know that it's not within the purpose of Quran to tell you anything about the mechanical engineering. But when it comes to biology, the origin of species, we feel like Quran should tell me something. Or if Quran tells something, I say, oh, it's talking about the origin of species. It's a question mark. Would you expect Quran? Does it fit? Like Quran could tell something, but again, it depends on your interpretation now. Is it really talking about the origin of species or is it talking about something else? Because same thing could be interpreted in various ways. And it depends on your expectation from Quran. Does it fit into the purpose of Quran to tell you about the origin of species? Must be the question we have. Does this make sense? Or does it make things complicated? I mean, it makes it complicated for sure, but is it manageable?
It makes sense. It's just that, like, that's the problem, isn't it? Like, people have this, like, non-Muslims have this idea of, oh, like, your God couldn't even protect the religion from, this one, like, Muslims are proud. They're like, oh, God protected the Quran, da, 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 da. And then people are like, yeah, but, like, look at all the interpretations out there. Your God, so powerful, couldn't even protect his religion from being, like, tarnished by these wrong interpretations. So.
I mean, what does that even mean? Like, I wouldn't, I don't know what those people are imagining, to be honest, because it sounds like I'm a teacher. I invite students from all different backgrounds to the school, and I want them to learn. Learning means I will put the things before them and I will ask questions, but I will not give them the answers. If I give them the answers, then what would they learn, right? Mm-hmm. If you are in the exam, an exam is again a tool for you to learn, or forget about exam. Let's say it's an assignment. I give you the assignment. 5 minutes later, I post the solutions. Do you learn anything out of that? Well, I protected my education system. I mean, the education means people will attempt learning it, mess it up, so that when I correct them, there's an opportunity for them to, oh, I now realize, erase it and redo it, right? This is what education is. And the purpose of revelation is human education. But if people think it, no, 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 the purpose of God is to win, make everywhere Islam, like this sounds very power-oriented worldview, and God in such a case is being imagined as this king sitting in the throne in there and fighting to make Islam spread over the world. The point of this existence is to learn. Learning means you will learn, you will make mistakes, will be given opportunity, erase it, redo it again. So such a questioner is really imagining God to be a like Middle Ages European king sort of a thing, but doesn't make any sense, right?
I was thinking like about the interpretation problem when people can interpret the Quran however they want. I was once listening to a lecture that spoke about how the difference between tafsir and ta'wil is basically that tafsir is the explanation and ta'wil is the interpretation, and your ta'wil has to be in line with the four tafsirs, which is tafsir of the Quran with Quran, which is when the verse of the Quran is explaining another verse of the Quran, and when or the interpretation that was understood by the prophets or his companions or the early predecessors. And then after you have that, then you can draw your own interpretation. So for example, someone is interpreting a verse about jihad, for example, that contradicts how it was understood by the prophets and his companions. His interpretation would be invalidated because there are some guidelines that we already have in place for how these things can be understood. That being said, the Quran still has a way to speak with each person on a personal level that that it's like a more personal relationship with each person. And that way, that's where Ta'wil comes into it, where each person can look at each verse and see how it applies to them personally. And that's where you can, that's the part that's open for interpretation. For example, um, the Quran says, Lord Maghdubi alayhim wa Dhalin, for example, Surah Al-Fatiha. Maghdubi alayhim means people that have, the translation means people who have anger on them, right? But you can't interpret that to mean road rage. Like when I'm angry at someone and I have road rage, and Dhalin doesn't mean someone who can't use his GPS to find his way, right? When it says people that have gone astray, it's talking about a specific group of people. And I feel like that's where we draw the line between that and tafsir.
Mhm. And even, let's say, for the example that you give, Prophet ﷺ provides us what those group of people are, right?
Yeah.
So says this Maghdub is the Jewish community or the Jews, and Dhalin are the Christians. But even when we take it as such, in the tongue of Prophet, because Quran is also talking about those group of people, right? You can take it as Quran is really talking about those people who identify themselves as Christians, who identify themselves as Jews, right? You can take it as such. But again, within the purposes of Quran, shall I take it as such? You need to ask that question. Because if it happens so, the verses about Christians, the verses about Jews becomes talking about them. I don't consider myself a Christian or Jew. I consider myself as a Muslim. So a good portion of Quran just becomes talking about them, which means teaching it to me so that I become careful about them. And, they're tricky. I should be careful. Like it becomes as if like a national manifesto. Like you're the nation of Muslims, so be careful, guys. You're good guys, but you stay intact like this. They're going to be against you, so you be careful like this. But rather, you can also take it as Quran is describing a personality type. And to the whatever is your share from that, you can be partially Christian, you can be partially Jewish from that point of view. Because the Quran describes a certain personality and says this is what I call as Christian, what I call as Jewish. Yusuf, do you have any portion of that in yourself, right? That I need to turn into. But then the question becomes, what do we understand from prophets? What is the role of prophet here? Because this is something that we discussed last time too. Prophet is interpreting Quran with his life, and as you mentioned, taught us how Quran could be understood within a certain time frame and lifetime. How because revelation was happening within life, as they were going through life, revelation was coming. And then we see how did Prophet take it, how did the community took it, so that now it gives us a framework of how to interpret Quran. But this is in addition to purposes of Quran. Keep that in mind. How he interpreted with his life and his followers after him becomes a necessary tool for me to learn how to do it. But another important thing is Quran needs to be interpreted in line with the creation too. Does this make sense or no? Who is speaking in Quran? Creator? Is Quran the only speech of the Creator? Yeah. What other speeches does the Creator have? You tell me.
Everything.
Hadith Quds. What else? Like prior revelations? But we are not sure like what is right, what's wrong in there. And this abnormal person here is saying that everything is. What does that even mean?
Because everything is materializing by the will of the Creator for my teaching. So it has to be a speech of the Creator.
Right? Like I might be speaking with my words, but then Qadir playing with his horn from there, I just look at there like this and then turn like that and continue talking. I told something to him, right? By rolling my eyes, actually I spoke. Sometimes we speak with words, sometimes we speak with acts, right? The whole existence is act of the creator, another type of speech. Qur'an, if you take it like this, Qur'an is interpreting you the life you are going through. This is the purpose of Qur'an actually. Qur'an interprets your life, your existence to you. What does that mean? Your parents, about 50, 40, they are getting old. Your grandparents passed away. Death is there. You're realizing this, right? What is death? Why am I dying? Is a question that you should be bothered by. And this is something that's happening in this life. Quran will come and explain you what it means. Quran interprets life. Quran, like there's a nice saying, I would say, of Imam Mursi about this. He says, Quran interprets the book of universe. The universe is another book. Spring is chapter of that book. Like the event you had, the fight you had with your friend today is a paragraph of that book. And you're trying to make sense of it. Still, this gentleman here was asking, well, he is so angry with some person and he is not able to forgive that person. And he is not even able to give a meaning to it. And he's trying to say, well, how can I express my feelings? Because he wants to get rid of the feeling rather than trying to learn what that feeling is telling him, because he's bothered by this person who is maybe looking down on him. And he is just saying that, oh, if I was able to, I will crush his head. This is the feelings going through him. And he doesn't want to feel that feeling. He could rather say that, well, that feeling is disturbing me for sure. But why is it being put in there in the first place? Because he's not able to shut it off. Quran is there to interpret this feeling. And for you, this is your personal feeling now. So within the purposes of Quran, what am I going to make sense? How am I going to make sense of that feeling becomes your question. This is why Quran is going to have another reason that Quran is going to have multiple interpretations. But of course, the bigger questions in this sense, again, will come as the question that Dua was asking or Zara was asking when it comes to legal points. Jihad is one big thing, and we can discuss jihad separately at some point. But since Dua intentionally used the word in there, I'm going to pick up on that. Do you take it as Islamic empire, even for the time of Prophet ﷺ or for Khalifa? Because Islam was spreading at that time, and there were happening battles. What was the nature of those battles? Because the same word was used in Islamic history for the wars. Everybody said that it's jihad that they are doing. Prophet made jihad, but I don't know, like Turks had been Khalifa for so long. Were they making jihad too? ISIS was claiming to make jihad too. What is jihad from the prophetic purposes? Within the purpose of Quran, what is jihad? And unfortunately, we are so much embedded in the understanding of power, nationalism, then what would we say? Of course, we have to be strong. Why? Muslim needs to be strong. Why? I mean, what's the point? Because Muslim is superior, believer is superior than the unbeliever. In what sense? In what sense? If we go back to Prophet's life again, this was one of our topics when we were discussing marriages of the Prophet, right? Prophet was ruler of that community. But in what sense was he a ruler? Was he a ruler like Donald Trump had been the ruler of United States? Let me give multiple examples. Or was he a ruler of the community like Mehmet II, the one who conquered Istanbul, was the king of Ottoman Empire? Okay, because he is also very celebrated with the Muslim community because he conquered Istanbul, right? Was Prophet a ruler? Let's say, okay, he was no way like Trump. How about Sultan Mehmet? Were the perspectives the same? Let's ask that question honestly to ourselves. What could have been the driving force for prophets' battles? What could have been the driving force for later generations? In our discussion about prophets' marriages, what did we say? Prophet is who? Teacher. Prophet is a teacher. His purpose, and what does he teach? Qadir is bothered by somebody who is looking down upon him, and he is just getting so angry with them and whatnot, and maybe he's getting stuck with that. Or a certain person's parents are old or dying, or another person is sick and wants to live more. Like, these are real life problems, and people are becoming, like, starting to have meaningless lives. Or imagine, probably you have seen such people, but I'm just going to put a case. A person who is super religious, okay? But wrong things keeps happening one after the other. Like, the person is super religious, but everything goes wrong in their life. What starts happening? They start questioning now. Like, I have seen such people. They were at some point saying that, look, God, like, I'm not doing parties or anything and whatnot. My classes sucks. And look at this party boy. He is more successful. Would you like me to be like him? I mean, what's going on, right? You start questioning. You start going through such stuff. Prophet is a teacher to answer those problems. Because this life is ending. And what is the point of this life? How do I make sense of this life? This is Prophet as a teacher, to save you from such, if you like, Prophet saves you from death. Because death is annihilation, and in our eyes, right? Prophet is there to save us from that, this meaninglessness, the darkness of meaninglessness. This is the point of Prophet. Now, such a person comes and makes a battle with a tribe. What would you expect could be the reason for that? Would you say that, well, he's trying to expand the land, or he's trying to earn more national resources of this other nation so that Muslims are going to be richer? Like, what could be the mindset of Prophet? Like, when America claims to bring democracy to Iraq, did anybody believe that this was the motivation? Like, if Iraq didn't have any single bit of oil in there and didn't have its geopolitical location or whatnot, would America bother bringing democracy to there? I am pretty sure there are a lot of countries somewhere in the middle of desert which America doesn't care or bother bringing democracy there. The point is not democracy. Like, it's not, apparently it's democracy to deliver something which America considers good for the people, but most of the time it's just sugarcoating what people are doing, right? Why did prophets had battles with other, like, neighboring tribes? Expand it further, since you mentioned Umar radiallahu anh. Umar radiallahu anh had a battle with Iranians, like Sasanis. Was it for getting their riches and becoming strong? Because really, the Khulafai Rashidun were very good students of Prophet in this sense too. The motivation was and needs to be teaching. And teaching what? This, your dark world is going to be enlightened by this message. Yes, this could be used as a pretext for doing crimes as well. But I am talking about genuinely being worried about, Prophet being worried, and his Sahaba being worried about delivering the message to those people. So Prophet's battles, Khulafai Rashidin's battles, were to more so to remove the ruling class which were preventing for the message to get delivered. This was the cause of those battles, not for expansion of the land, not to get the riches. If I read jihad not like this, but more our colonialist or imperialist perspective, and then say that Umar radiallahu anh had an empire, then that means we are imposing our crooked understanding onto them. This is why we need to question first, who is prophet? What is Quran? To the extent that I find proper descriptions to this, I will interpret Quran accordingly. And then jihad is going to be very different. And when I look at Prophet's life with that lens, I will understand and confirm what he was saying to Sahabi. When they were turning back from battle, Prophet would tell to them that now we are going to the big battle from the small battle, like from small jihad to the big jihad. Like he's interpreting your internal jihad as jihad. This is a beautiful interpretation of Quran. He's putting it into context, saying that your internal struggle is your jihad, and the nature of our struggle in that battlefield was the same. Like in your internal conflict, are you trying to gain land when you're fighting with the Satan and the whispers of Satan? Is this a fight for gaining wealth, riches, land? No, you're trying to conquer this territory of existence, if you like, for the creator, rather than satanic perspective of, oh, it happens by itself. Let me give a very small example about what that conflict looks like. In your internals, let's say you're saying that something happened, let's say an earthquake happened, and you have this question in you. Why, or a war is happening and innocent children are dying in Gaza, right? You should be having questions internally. Why is this happening? How is it that God is allowing this to happen? These are questions that probably is going through your head or your heart. This is now a battlefield. This is an internal location for jihad. What sort of a thing? Now Satan is saying that, look, if there was a God, as you were claiming, such a thing wouldn't have happened. It looks like your God is not there, Yusuf. This is the question internally lingering in there, if you take it serious. I mean, you might sweep it under the carpet, another thing, but the question is there. Who is going to own what is happening in there? Am I going to say that, well, that battle killing, they kill it, God does not. So then Satan would say, yeah, God does certain things and people do certain other things. What sort of a God is that? Like he's partially creating and letting some others to create some stuff. This is a battle ongoing in there, right? I need to claim the territory to my creator rather than Satan owning it and saying that, no, it happens by itself, or chance, life is a chance, or life is survival of the fittest, right? Can I reclaim this land in me for La ilaha illallah? This is the battle. Rasulullah was pointing to this, alayhi salatu wasalam. In the outside world, his battles were for the same reason as well. Is the message going to be delivered to people over there? This was the concern. What happens in later generations? And you can do the same for yourself. I mean, let's not put the blame on the quote-unquote Muslim kings. May Allah judge them. But let's judge ourselves. You want to get rich because you want to serve this religion? It's an outside battle that's so nice, right? I mean, a brother was asking that question after Juma. He was saying that he's finishing his undergraduate, but he was reluctant to get into graduate school. And he studied computer science, so he can, like from Penn, so he can make a good earning if he goes to California, right? Like 300 or so. So he says, well, I was planning to do graduate school because I thought this would be a good way to serve Islam. But after the current events, I realized that in academia, just in the snap of a finger of a donor, even if you are a full tenured professor, you are going to be kicked out of the window. So I felt like I should get rich and become a donor. But this is a very honest example, but pretty much many of us are feeling like that. Like, I would like to be rich so that I'm going to serve the religion, right? Is this jihad really? First, see within your position, were you able to claim the territory for the Creator within your heart? Then your outwardly actions would be equally jihad too. So verses about jihad, if somebody comes out and says, who is yearning for power, and says, look, Quran says, kill the infidel. Who is infidel? Infidel is my neighbor who is non-Muslim, and I can go and kill. Like, your description of infidel is, again, out of the place. Killing is out of the place. Everything is out of the place. You should go and fix yourself first, right? So this is why such an interpretation, totally nonsense interpretation, and I can say that it's nonsense and convince a sane person about that. But if that insane person comes and says, no, no, this is what I'm taking out of Quran, I mean, if a person doesn't want to listen, what would you say? It's their business. But my business is, how do I properly make sense of Quran? Because still, for myself, I am worried, is what I'm understanding from Quran, is it a proper understanding? What if my description of Quran is distorted, right? And it will be distorted. Accept that for yourself. What you understand from Quran today will be true, but tomorrow you will realize that, oh, I was mistaken there. You will refine your understanding. Prophet ﷺ, best of humanity, used to do istighfar 70 times a day. What does he teach us with that? You will be improving. This is what it means. Like, what he understood from Quran today is right. But as he progresses, because Prophet also progresses throughout his life, he gets to a better understanding and he updates his understanding. So for a child, like we have a mathematician over there. So in the primary school, they learn math. But when it comes to college level, you say, oh, it's very primitive. Many of the things you were just glossing over summation and multiplication and whatnot. When you come to class, oh, calculus, yeah, this is what it is, right? Then you go to like PhD, become a professor and whatnot. The calculus becomes, oh yeah, it's just glossing over many of the details. But calculus, when you were taking it undergrad, was correct for that level of understanding. But as you go further, you are starting to say, well, you remember what I said then? Let's refine it, right? This is going to happen with your own journey with Quran as well. And it's expected. And there's something beautiful about that too. You will put your best effort to understand Quran, knowing that it's not you who create the correct, who creates anything. You will be constantly asking, oh Allah, guide me to the right path. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim would be your constant worry. And that worry is very valuable. Rather than saying that, okay, I found this is the true meaning, this is the true meaning, this is the true meaning. There's going to be a huge journey. This is why Allah gives you a life. Like, if it was possible that, oh, these are the correct meanings, and we'll just load it to you through some like software and whatnot, okay, we are done. Why are we discussing anything, right? It's already discussed. We concluded this is the correct answer. Well, let's stop. But Qadir is living a new life. Like, he was born in Pakistan, comes to here. It's a totally new experience he is going through. So he has to go through his understanding relative to him. He will benefit from prior understandings, will use it as a framework to properly locate himself, but will try to re-understand what Quran he's supposed to understand from Quran. This should make you a little worried, because now there is responsibility. We would love to say that, okay, yeah, Sheikh, tell me what I am supposed to understand. Okay, I got it. Now you're responsible. This is being the mindset for us, right? We don't want to take any responsibility and just take everything easy, which we don't do when it comes to our business decisions, our investment decisions. We are going through all possible, and then people suggest that Kadir is a good investor. I go to Kadir, but still I'm going to give him $1 billion. So my money is valuable. I go and check 3 or 4 other people to see if what he's suggesting is making sense. And then if I start seeing a agreement upon the suggestion and it makes sense, then I'll put my money in that investment, right? We are putting, what is your major capital? Your life. Your life is going away. Where do you invest this life? Oh, I am trying to see the sheikh with the longest beard so that I can say, oh, he looks okay. And then I see that he has a lot of likes in there. I say, okay, sheikh, tell me, and the responsibility is at your shoulders. It shouldn't be that cheap. We are not that cheap when it comes to less valuable things such as our money and whatnot. Yes, you had a question.
I was going to say, so when you like, I recognize that when I look at the world or even the Quran from like my lens, which is, biased, then the Quran will become distorted for me. So for example, like if I'm coming with a very liberal lens, I've seen like a lot of liberal people are like, oh yeah, Prophet Lut's story, they weren't talking about like homosexuality, they were talking about rape, and then they try to like justify that or whatever. So then I think to myself, okay, like maybe my lens is distorted, so I look to, some scholar, right? But the thing is, like I think we're going through an issue right now where like everyone is banning under scholars, and just because a scholar is saying something, people don't really like question it. Or it's also like for the past like many centuries, it's mostly been like men who are famous in the field and men who are like interpreting the Quran, and then their misogynistic worldviews are seeping in there. So then it's like, who do you look to, or how do you try to get an unbiased interpretation when you know that your worldview is distorted? These scholars are also coming from, their own biases. How do you try to seek the truth?
So it is not possible to have an unbiased interpretation because it's interpretation, right? Like in this room, how many eyes there are now? No 2 eyes are looking at the room from the same perspective, right? Because everybody's head is located at a different location. So everybody's perspective in this sense is different. And I say, well, I'm looking at the room in an unbiased. No, I am looking at it from wherever I am located, right? So our more proper question would be here that where would my creator like me to look from? And this is why prophets gets into the picture. I mean, there has to be some sort of a preferred perspective from among humanity. This is what the prophet is. So at least I have a way to lean towards somewhere. I mean, it's not that I am doomed or all the perspectives are equally valid. Like the creator preferred a certain perspective and said that, look, this is an exemplary perspective. I would like you to circle around this perspective. And prophet did raise students. He didn't just keep it to himself. He educated a community and a tradition of scholarly tradition from there. This is why we turn to scholars, but then becomes which scholar, right? And I'm going to be honest with that. At some point, I was becoming on the side of, like, this was maybe, I don't know, up to 10 years ago. When I go to the mosque for Jumu'ah, I was feeling so stressed because what the Khatib said was, I was saying, come on, like, I was criticizing the Khatib. What he said was not making sense. But what he said was not 100% wrong. Like, of course, there was something like overemphasizing. This was the thing which stuck with me when I first came to US. The number one rule of Islam was to, before starting the prayer, fold your pants. Like in priority, where would you put this, right? But it was such a big thing within the mosque, and I was just getting so irritated by it. Or number like the second rule of Islam was, as you start a prayer, step over your brother's small finger. Like, I mean, come on, I don't like that much of intimacy, right? So, like, so much of small details were being exaggerated so much, and I was getting irritated by that. But this irritation, and might be justified, was making me not to listen the good things that this imam was saying. So I should rather say, now this is what I'm trying to adopt as a perspective for myself. Like Usama over there, look at him and see what aspects of revelation and prophetic teaching is being reflected beautifully through that brother. Try to look at it with that lens, or seek for this aspect in this person. Because if you look with this lens, you will start to figure these aspects out. Let's say, if I was into cooking, okay, then let's assume I'm obsessed with the food and different kitchens, right? Then everybody in here has coming from a different background. I will try to see, since this is my obsession, right? What do you guys put to food in Pakistani kitchen, I would say. And he would say, oh, you mean tikka masala, this, whatever the name is of the food, with spice. And I could relate to some of the foods that this person is telling, and some others I say, no, it's not proper. Or, I mean, you're eating the meat without cooking? No way. I mean, that's wrong, I would say, maybe. But for others, I would say, well, it makes sense. And with whomever I talk, since this is my focus, there could be many other things. Or even within the cooking, there would be things that I would consider as, and I can distinguish as right, as wrong. And as much as I have the worry to take the Prophet as a reference point, I will also have a somewhat of a reference to compare. I will look there, I will look here. So the more important concern here should be, am I concerned, or am I admitting that, first of all, Prophet's perspective is more valuable than mine? Because this is something that we do not admit. In this age, this is something that we do not admit. If I admit that, then the second question becomes, do I have a desire to, or an internal force to really look there? Because then you would be concerned to try to extract something from there. Then I will realize even my local imam, to whatever extent he can present, is conveying something from that prophetic teaching. I will try to extract that because I'm concerned. I am interested in getting whatever I can get out of that, right? Imagine if one Sahabi was alive today in the mountains of Nepal. Would you be interested in going and visiting that person to say that, tell me about him? If you're interested in, you would go there. Such Sahabi do not exist. But that local imam over there has a share of that. So try to get this share of it, because Sahabi were, they were best among humanity, yet they had their shortcomings. There are Sahabi in their later life who were had the punishment for drinking alcohol. Like, that's a Sahabi after Prophet's life drank alcohol, yet better than any one of us here. But it doesn't mean that they didn't do anything wrong. They did wrongs, but we do learn whatever goods we can learn from them too. Even their mistakes are valuable to us, because from their mistakes we learn. More important question is, do I have such a desire to learn from them? Because then I will try to maximize what I can get from them. So Prophet's life is important to learn a proper understanding of Quran. So just to summarize, a proper understanding of what Quran is. And what Quran is means, who is the speaker, who you are, like 4 items: speaker, addressee, the context of Quran, and the purpose of Quran. Context of Quran is you and your daily life. Purpose of Quran is to provide you guidance. Speaker is to what extent you get to know your creator. And the audience is you. Who are you? These are going to change what you get out of Quran. One. Second thing is, the first addressee of the Quran was Prophet ﷺ. How did he understand and practice it in his life? and how did he train his students to understand from Quran? That's also going to give me a pattern of how to understand Quran within that time frame. Learn how they interpreted it in their life, apply it to your life. And the third, when it comes to now scholars of your age, use this lens. Know that yes, everybody is going to have a perspective, but if I get my perspective from my philosophy class, I'm already starting it like quite wrong. So I will need to reconsider what my local imam would say. And that person might have 1-2 years of education or whatever. Fine. But there would be good things in this person's life, and I'll try to take out of that. Long story short, Quran is supposed to have multiple interpretations, and it's a beautiful thing, but responsibility is at your shoulders, at my shoulders. And a final concluding remark, like the other day, a pen is having iftars, tarawih. And traditionally, in pen tarawih, what they were doing was giving 5-minute khatira in between 2 rakats. So last year, they were reading from 30 for 30 or something like this. There's a book of Yaqin Institute, Umar Sulaiman, and they are summarizing juz of Quran. And in 5 minutes, they were just giving this super quick thing. What I was asking them was, my dear brother, sister, whomever is reading it, let's not give a summary of an entire juz in 5 minutes. Just pick one verse which really touches your life from within that juz, but one verse, and share it with me. That will stay with me. Quran is so rich, like even for a single verse, you can talk hours and hours about them. What my long story short, find those verses which speaks to you. I mean, they all speak to you, all verses, but some of them would speak more to you within your day. Look at that verse, realize how beautifully your creator is talking to you, knowing all those hardships or even sometimes happinesses, sometimes sadnesses you go through. You will realize that much better than I can guess what question is going through your heart and answering you, your creator is answering you. Establish this relationship with Quran. This should be my goal for becoming a student of Quran. Because nowadays it sounds more like a job or like a profession to be a mufassir or whatever. Do it for yourself. I mean, if you learn, you can teach others, whatever, but do it for yourself. So may Allah make us benefit from Quran. May Allah enlighten us with the light of Quran in this life and in the afterlife, inshallah. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب